This is the story of Bobo. When I was 11 years old, no, 10, I got a paper route. It was the dumbest paper route in history because I rode 3 miles back a long country road that was not paved and then across to Brookville-Salem Road, which was paved, and then back. It was 3 miles and I had 5 customers. So it was the most uneconomic thing. But, I decided I wanted to have a job and make a little money. So going back this unpaved road was an everyday adventure, but it became a big adventure when it snowed. Because when I went down the road, I'd come up a hill and there were like 5 houses along a straight and level place. And in the middle of those houses was he was a vicious white dog. And every time I'd get to the top of the hill and start riding down, he would see me and he'd come running out and he'd try to bite my leg. But I was so fast on my bike that I could get past him and it was no problem all during the fall and so on. But then it snowed. And, oh, here's Timmy. Hi, girl. So I couldn't ride my bike. And the first big snow was like a foot. And I had these old-time galoshes that, you'd snap over. And so trying to run in those was, it was awful. And so I'd get to the top of the hill and I'd start running with my paper bag. And Bobo would come out, roar, roar, and he was trying to bite me and I could barely get past him. My boots gave me a little protection, but it was terrible. And so I was terrified of this dog. And I begged my mother to drive, or my dad to drive me around. And they said, we can't do it. So I had to figure out a way. And I remember I had a nightmare about this dog literally biting my leg and chewing up my leg. And I asked my mom, what am I going to do? So I thought of getting a club, so that when he'd come along, I'd whack him. But I knew that wasn't going to work because it'd just make him madder. And then I thought about getting my BB gun, but there was no future in that. And then my mother had an idea. She said, what if you got some dog biscuits? And, just threw him, some dog biscuits. Well, I thought, I guess it's worth a try. So we went to the store and got a box of dog biscuits. And I loaded them up in my paper bag. And I got to the top of the hill and I started running in my boots, those galoshes, down through the foot of snow on the road. And this dog came out, and I started throwing the dog biscuits right away. And so he was coming at me. But then he saw this and it distracted him. And he went over and he got one. And I kept throwing him and he got another one. And by the time he had eaten up all the dog biscuits, I had gotten down past the place and I was safe. Well, I did that then every day. I'd get up to the top of the hill. He'd see me. He'd come bounding over across the snow and I'd throw out the dog biscuits. And then after the snow melted, I had them in my bag and I'd ride the bike down. I'd start right at the top of the hill. And before long, the character of his barking changed. And so instead of coming to eat me alive, he was coming kind of it was kind of like a party, and hey, this guy's around, and again, he's going to throw me some stuff. And so I'd throw him treats, and he'd eat them, but then I'd kind of stop around, and he'd kind of come and run alongside me, down the road. And what happened was we became friends. And I got to know his name. His name was Bobo. And so he'd come running. I'd say, hey, Bobo, here you go, guy. And I'd throw him some dog biscuits. And he'd come and he'd run along. Well, before, I don't know, after 3-4 months, he started running along with me all along my paper route. So he was kind of my guard dog. And we'd run all the way around. And he'd come down to my house. And we'd play. I'd throw him stuff, and he'd run, and just like I do with Tippy now, I'd throw the stick, and so Bobo and I became buddies. And so this enemy who was going to eat me alive, I learned about doing good for your enemies as a strategy for survival at an early age. And that story of Bobo has stuck with me, and is a story that has been connected with me in relation to Jesus' ministry, of what he did. He gave out healings and exorcisms and stuff to the enemies of Israel. It was transformative. They became friends. So that's the story of Bobo.